If you ask me to list my best qualities, I'd probably start with precision and foresight. My name is Joanne Whitaker. I'm 78 years old. And if there's one thing I've always done well, it's plan ahead. Most people my age cling to paper calendars. I switched to a digital one a long time ago. The font is larger, the layout simpler, and it sends me little reminders, something my memory occasionally forgets to do. Every Wednesday, like clockwork, I review my investment accounts. They're nothing flashy, mostly index funds, a few bonds, and some dividend stocks that Henry, my late husband, picked out before he passed. We weren't rich people, just smart savers, quiet savers. He worked in public transit. I spent 37 years at the Department of Treasury auditing people who made 10 times what we did. And yet, when Henry passed 10 years ago, I was shocked at how well we'd prepared. These days, I live alone in a small apartment in downtown Minneapolis. 1 bedroom, a modest kitchen that opens into the living room, and a tiny balcony with a basil pot that keeps trying to die on me. It's nothing luxurious, but it's mine, and nobody questions my choices in it. But the biggest asset I own isn't where I live now. It's a 2-story home in Edina, a quiet, tree-lined suburb outside the city. White siding, black shutters. We bought it nearly 20 years ago for our only child, Tyler. When he got married, Henry and I wanted to give him a proper start. The house was always in my name for tax reasons. Tyler agreed. Gladly. He pays a token rent. Well, pays is generous. The last payment came 2 weeks late and short by $40. I didn't say anything. I never do. Inside that house lives Tyler, his wife Melanie, and their 2 kids, Zoe and Logan. Good kids. Smart. Distant. If you pass the house, you wouldn't think twice about who really owned it. And that's just how Tyler prefers it. Until he wants something fixed, or bought, or transferred. That house. It was supposed to be a gift. A legacy. Something Henry and I were proud to give. But lately, it's starting to feel more like a leash. And my neck is getting sore. Henry and I were never flashy people. We didn't do grand vacations or designer furniture. Our joys were simple Sunday pancakes, long walks around Lake Harriet, jigsaw puzzles on rainy days. When Tyler was born, he became the center of our world. It had taken us years to conceive. And by the time I gave birth, I was 34. The doctors warned us not to try for another. So we poured everything we had into him. Education, summer camps, braces, piano lessons. We gave him not just what he needed, but what we never had. I don't regret any of that. What I do regret is how that generosity became expected, then invisible. When Henry passed, Tyler was supportive for about a month. Then the calls slowed. Now, he calls when he needs money. Or when Melanie's car breaks down. Or when the kids' school has a fundraiser. Last fall, Zoe wanted to join a digital art program. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Tyler had said, it cost $800. I paid it. 2 months later, she dropped out. Bored. Never said thank you. Logan cracked his tablet screen playing some online game. Tyler texted, "Can you help and attach the Amazon link?" I ordered it without question. And when Melanie's mother was diagnosed with something I still don't know what I paid for a week-long Airbnb in Wisconsin Dells, for rest and recovery, Tyler said, "I've never even been to Wisconsin Dells." They don't ask anymore. They assume. There's a kind of erosion that happens when you're generous for too long without boundaries. A quiet wearing down of your own self-worth. You stop being a person. You become a resource. I look back sometimes and wonder, was there a moment I could have said no? Did I create this pattern? The truth is, I never wanted Tyler to struggle. I thought every dollar I gave was softening life's blows. But I think I also robbed him of the muscle that forms when you face those blows head on. Now, he lives in a house he doesn't own, drives a car I once helped finance, and eats in a kitchen I remodeled. And still, he looks at me like I owe him more. It's not the money that wears me down. It's how little I matter outside of it. The invitation came on a Thursday afternoon. Tyler texted me no greeting, no punctuation. Dinner Saturday 6 p.m. Just hang out. I read it twice. No mention of Melanie. No warmth. But after wiring him $1,300 just 2 days prior for what he described as school project tech stuff, I figured this was his way of saying thanks. So I said yes. Saturday. I put on my best navy blue pantsuit, the one Henry always said brought out my eyes, and baked my peach cobbler from scratch. The good kind. With brown sugar crumble and cinnamon dusted on top. I took a cab to Edina. It had rained earlier, and the sidewalk still glistened under the fading light. When I arrived, Zoe opened the door. She didn't look up from her phone. "Grandma's here," she called flatly over her shoulder. Melanie was in the kitchen, speaking loudly into a Bluetooth headset while sautéing something that smelled aggressively like ginger and garlic. She nodded at me but didn't pause her conversation. "Yes, Courtney. But that's not my job to fix. I'll call you back later, mother-in-law's here." She didn't even look embarrassed. I offered help. She declined without eye contact. "We're almost done here." Tyler was out back fiddling with a monstrous grill that looked like it belonged in a commercial kitchen. He saw me through the window and waved. I waved back, holding the cobbler like an offering. When he finally came in, smelling of smoke and aftershave, he gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hey, Mom. Glad you came. I brought the cobbler," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Oh, awesome. Zoe loves it." We sat down for dinner 30 minutes later. Logan barely grunted, "Hello." Zoe had earbuds in until Melanie snapped at her to put them away. The food was too spicy for my stomach, but I smiled through it, pushing it around on the plate. Midway through the meal, Melanie casually brought up the topic. "You know, Joanne, there's this lovely senior community being built in Bloomington. Tyler and I saw the brochure. It has yoga, gardening, even on-site healthcare." I froze. Tyler jumped in. "And about the house?" "Mom, maybe it's time we got some paperwork in place just to keep things clean. Financially?" That's when I knew this wasn't dinner. This was a setup. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with the sound of Tyler's voice echoing in my head. Just to keep things clean? Financially. They wanted the house. Not now. Maybe. But soon. And they wanted me. Out of the way. Framed as concern. Packaged as love. After all, what better time to pressure an elderly woman than right after she's eaten your oversalted stir-fry and watched your kids ignore her? At 2 a.m., I got up, walked into the kitchen, and opened the drawer where I keep unopened mail. Real mail. The kind that still shows up in envelopes. There it was. Crenshaw Realty Group. The logo was embossed in gold. I'd received dozens of these offers over the years, developers sniffing around Edina like hungry dogs. Usually, I tossed them without a glance. But tonight, I opened it. "Dear Mrs. Whitaker." It read, "Our client is prepared to offer $685. $600,000 for the property located at address. I read the figure again. $685,000. A number large enough to change my life and Tyler's Maya. A number that might have felt obscene years ago, back when Henry and I bought the place for $240. Ling. But now it felt like freedom. I placed the letter on the table, to then brewed tea and stared at it for another hour. The house had memories. Tyler's first steps. Henry trimming the hedges every spring. Me baking blueberry muffins with Zoe when she still wore pigtails. But what was left of that now? Henry was gone. Zoe didn't even look up from her screen. And Tyler, my son, had just politely suggested I remove myself from the home I still legally owned. I called a cab at 7:00 the next morning. By 9:00, I was checked into the Riverstone Lodge. I told the front desk I'd be staying for a while. And then I called Crenshaw Realty. "My name is Joanne Whitaker," I said. "I received an offer on a house I own. I'd like to discuss it." I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel smug. I felt tired. But for the first time in years, I also felt like I was finally standing on my own 2 feet. The office at Crenshaw Realty was sleek glass doors, soft lighting, a little too much eucalyptus in the air. A young man named Marcus Lee greeted me, polished, polite. He offered coffee, which I declined. "I'm not here for a chat," I told him. "I'm here to understand the terms." He smiled like I'd passed some unspoken test. We spent 2 hours going over the paperwork. The offer was solid. No contingencies. Full payment within 3 weeks. And yes, because the property was solely in my name, I was legally entitled to sell it without informing the current tenants until 30 days before closing. Technically, I didn't need to warn them at all. "Would you like us to delay notification?" Marcus asked. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Send it on the last possible legal day." He didn't flinch, just made a note. The next morning, I signed the preliminary agreement. Then I went shopping not for clothes or gifts, but for something quieter, a storage unit, a P.O. box, a financial advisor who wasn't tied to Tyler's world. I even turned off my phone. The silence was unnerving at first. I kept expecting the guilt to wash over me like a wave. But it didn't come. Instead, there was a strange calm in the quiet. I slept better, ate slowly, started reading again. By the second week, I had hired a lawyer named Eleanor Haskins, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who read every contract like it was a confession. She reviewed the deed, the rental agreement, and every bank statement from the last 5 years. "Miss Whitaker," she said, "you're not just within your rights. You're clean as glass. If your son tries anything, he'll lose." I nodded. It wasn't about punishing Tyler. Not really. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I'd handed over piece by piece every time I paid quietly. Smiled tightly. Said yes when I wanted to say no. Now the house was almost sold. The deal would close in 10 days. The eviction notice would arrive the next morning. And I still hadn't returned a single one of Tyler's 14 missed calls. I wasn't hiding. I was choosing peace. On the morning the eviction notice was delivered, I turned my phone back on. 27 missed calls. 10 voicemails. A stream of text messages from Tyler, Melania, and even Zoe. They ranged from confused to frantic. The last voicemail was from Tyler's mom. "I don't know what's happening, but we got a notice saying the house has been sold. This has to be a mistake. Please call me." So I did. "Mom, thank God." "What's going on?" His voice was sharp with panic. "There's no mistake. Tyler, the house has been sold." Silence. Then You sold our house without telling us. It was never your house, I said calmly. And you told me to start thinking about moving out. I did. His voice cracked. You blindsided us. You didn't even give us a chance. I gave you 20 years. Tyler, 20 years of living in that house, rent-free. With upgrades and support. And now? I'm giving you 30 days. 30 days, he exploded. Where are we supposed to go? What am I supposed to tell the kids? That's for you to figure out. I can't believe you'd do this to your own family. He snapped. You're heartless. I took a breath. I'm offering a $50. Zero interest-free loan to help you with a down payment. If you want it. But the timeline is non-negotiable. You're offering us a loan. You just made almost $700. Zero. And you want us to pay you back. I'm offering you help. I repeated. Not another favor. Not another free ride. There was a pause. I could hear him breathing through his teeth. Fine. Then I guess I'll get a lawyer. You want to treat this like business, so be it. That's your choice. I said. I've retained counsel as well. Her name is Eleanor Haskins. Any future communication can go through her. I can't believe this. He muttered. You made it clear you didn't want me in your life unless I was useful. So I decided to stop being useful. I ended the call. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Instead, I sat down with a cup of tea and turned on the radio. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I'd just taken back my name. 3 weeks later, I moved into a corner unit at Riverside Lofts, a new complex overlooking the Mississippi River. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Open concept kitchen. A small balcony where I planted fresh basil that actually thrived. It wasn't just nicer than my old apartment, it was a declaration. I wasn't scaling back. I was finally scaling into myself. I joined a senior advocacy group called the Silver Circle, retired teachers, nurses, engineers, people who'd spent decades being useful to everyone else and were finally learning to live for themselves. Every Wednesday, we met at the community center, discussed local policy, planned fundraisers, and occasionally griped about hip pain. It felt good to belong to something without obligation. With the help of my financial advisor, I also set up 2 anonymous trust funds, $100. Zero each for Zoe and Logan. The funds would unlock when they turned 25. And only for education or starting a legitimate business. They wouldn't know where the money came from. That was the point. I didn't want gratitude. I wanted to give them a real chance, one that didn't depend on their parents' behavior or their father's grudges. On weekends, I went shopping with Dolores, a woman I'd befriended at the Silver Circle. She used to be a flight attendant and had a story for every country on Earth. She made me laugh. She also convinced me to finally use my passport. Japan in the spring, she said. Sipping coffee. Cherry blossoms. Hot springs. Quiet shrines. We'll get lost and find ourselves. I said yes. I'd said no to so much over the years' travel. Rest. Friendships, because I thought my family needed me more than I needed a life. But now, I understood, when you give too much of yourself away, eventually, there's nothing left. That evening, I unpacked my last box and opened the linen drawer in my new bedroom. Inside was a brooch shaped like a maple leaf silver, with small glass beads. A gift from Henry on our 40th anniversary. I pinned it to the lapel of my coat, looked at myself in the mirror, and saw someone I hadn't seen in years. Not a mother, not a provider, not a placeholder. Just Joanne. Fully. Finally. Herself. It was early spring when the phone rang. The name on the screen made my chest tighten, Zoe Whitaker. I hadn't heard her voice since that awkward dinner. Part of me expected anger. Or guilt-laced pleading. But when I answered, her voice was soft. Grandma, is it true? Did Dad really tell you to move out? He hesitated. Yes. Not in those exact words. Maybe. But the message was clear. She was quiet for a beat. Then, he says you're punishing him. That you're always been controlling. I exhaled slowly. Your dad sees things through his own lens. But the truth is, Zoe, I gave everything I had to make his life easier. And when I needed kindness, he offered conditions. She didn't argue. Instead, she said something that startled me. I got a job. After school, just a few shifts at a coffee shop. We can't afford extras anymore. But I like earning my own money. Something caught in my throat. That's wonderful. Sweetheart, I'm proud of you. She continued. Logan's joined the swim team. Mom's working more hours. And Dad's, well, he's quiete lately. Less angry. He's even thinking about a career change. I'm glad to hear that. Zoe paused. I'm not calling to ask for money. I just wanted to know if maybe I could call you sometimes. Just to talk. He blinked hard. You can call me anytime. A week later, I saw her name again, but this time, in the local newspaper. A music showcase at the Community Arts Center listed her as a featured cellist. I bought a ticket and sat in the back row. Out of sight. When she stepped onto the stage in a simple black dress, cello in hand, I barely recognized her. The awkward teenager was gone. In her place stood a young woman with grace in her posture and strength in her eyes. She played The Swan by St. Saëns. Every note shimmered with longing and restraint. When she finished, I clapped quietly, then slipped out before anyone saw me. But in the lobby, a voice stopped me. You came. Zoe was breathless. Eyes bright. I did. I smiled. She stepped forward. Hesitant. Then hugged me. Not for money. Not for favors. Just for me. And for the first time in decades, that was enough.